Good afternoon, everyone. This is Mike O'Malley here with the Hurricane Outlook and discussion for August 17th, 2022, around 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. We have a lot to talk about today, including a new storm alert. Could another tropical cyclone be forming in the Gulf of Mexico? Well, let's go and jump straight into everything. Taking a wide look across the tropical Atlantic this morning, we noticed that it is getting quite active across the basin right now. We have a couple of things ongoing today. First of all, in portions of the Western Caribbean, we have this tropical disturbance, which has not been tagged in invest yet, but will likely get that designation soon. This is moving towards the northwest into the Gulf of Mexico, where some development is possible as this nears coastal Mexico and Texas. And then we have this tropical wave, part of the monsoon trough as well, emerging off the coast of Africa today. And there has been some rumblings that as these waves do make its way westward with time, some development in portions of the central and western part of the Atlantic main development region is certainly possible. So we'll go ahead and take a look at all that right now. First of all, the tropical weather outlook as highlighted by the National Hurricane Center. Nothing out here in the main development region yet, but I do suspect that we will be seeing an area pop up very shortly. And then here's this area highlighted by NHC today. Again, 0% over the next 48 hours and 20% over the next 5 days. This is moving generally towards the northwest into the Bay of Campeche. And if we actually look here at a close zoom up of this system, we do notice that, again, this will be moving from the Yucatan and Central America into the Gulf and Bay of Campeche, where after that will be moving towards the northwest. And some additional development of the system is possible as it nears portions of coastal Texas and Mexico. It remains to be seen exactly what will happen, but we do have some indications, so let's go ahead and jump straight into that as well. If we look at the visible satellite imagery from this morning, we notice that the system is a lot more convectively healthy than what we would have anticipated based on some of the model forecasts over the past couple of days. And officially, NHC has the area of disturbance marked actually over portions of Central America inland right now. But there is a curious blob of convection right now towards the north of that. And if this certainly does have a little bit more time over water, this might be able to at least mature enough before running into the Yucatan Peninsula. But this also does have a little bit of track implications, especially for if this becomes the dominant area where a circulation will form once it reemerges into the Gulf of Mexico. And that is certainly a possibility, and we'll talk about that here in a second. If we look at the GFS forecast, this is the 850 millibar vorticity, or the spin in the atmosphere at 5,000 feet off the ground. This is valid for 2 p.m. this afternoon. We notice that the GFS doesn't really highlight any particular area in the vorticity field. You can kind of see some of that right now over Central America by 2 p.m. this afternoon. But the GFS doesn't really do anything with it, and it just carries a broad, loose disturbance into Texas, into far southern Texas on Sunday. And the GFS is never really able to consolidate that because it is moving pretty quick. It only has about 2 days of water. We saw what 98L was capable of, and that was almost a tropical depression as it made landfall. So it is theoretically possible that we kind of have a system once again that kind of overachieves. If you actually look at the European ensemble and the 200 millibar wind here, we notice that, again, it's pretty favorable, at least for the time being. For the next about 30 hours or so, this has at least some upper level anticyclonic flow. And then this moves into the Gulf of Mexico, where you still continue to see pretty good outflow, at least for the time being. But then we have this trough digging down, and that's going to force a lot of shear on the back side of this and starts to collapse this upper level anticyclone here by Saturday. And so on Sunday, by Saturday evening into Sunday morning, you're now dealing with kind of this northwest flow here, and just overall, it is not conducive for tropical activity. If we actually look at the ensemble mean sea level pressures here on the European, we notice that there is a handful of members that still do develop this into a weak tropical depression or storm somewhere near coastal Mexico or Texas as we approach the next couple of days. Now, again, if this is a little bit further towards the north, say where some of the convection is today, the launching point is different, and that does have maybe a little bit of a different trajectory. If we actually look at the 500 millibar heights here, one of the things that we'll be looking for initially is this big trough, and eventually this ridge will build back in. But again, this is the upper level flow the low-level flows generally out of the kind of from the southeast to the northwest here. So we'll be kind of watching how that interacts. But either way, we could have a system approaching coastal Mexico or southern Texas sometime this weekend, but so far the impacts seem to remain pretty limited outside of maybe some heavy rainfall. So we'll continue to monitor the progress of that. Across the rest of the tropics this afternoon, well, not really much is occurring, at least for the minute, but we do have a couple of things beginning to occur. So this is, again, the 060 run of the GFS. We noticed that this is the monsoon trough that we've been talking about. You can kind of see the westerly winds here in the low levels, and at the upper levels, mid and upper levels, you have strong easterly winds. That tropical easterly jet is kind of creating this background cyclonic flow in the atmosphere. And so you kind of notice how that spin, you can kind of just see that spin taking place here in the model. And by day 5, this is a system that is to the southwest of the Cabo Verde Islands at this point. And we notice how it is actually trying to spin up a little bit here on the model forecast. And the upper level environment at this time, we can actually look at the upper level environment is very favorable for additional development. The problem is going to be the dry air. However, we can see here on the GFS forecast at day 5, we actually do have a pretty good moist pocket, but there is some concerns about this dry air being blasted in and kind of wrapped around. But either way, if we continue this GFS forecast out in time, we notice that it does take a little bit to consolidate because this northern end kind of gets flung up and into the cooler waters and dry air. But eventually this is able to kind of get past 50 west, and eventually in the long term this begins to actually develop into a bona fide tropical cyclone here sometime by about August 5th. And then simultaneously we also have a new tropical wave that is emerging off the coast of Africa. This too goes on to develop into a hurricane on the GFS forecast. And then we'll have to watch for a potential system out here in the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico out in the longer range. This is about the 26th, 25th going into the 26th of August. And we could have another system emerging into the Gulf of Mexico. This is actually a pre-existing wave that is currently out there right now. This kind of dry tropical wave right here will be traversing and moving towards the west over the next couple of days. And this is actually what the model is picking up on, I do believe. So we'll have to kind of watch that. The European ensembles are pretty much lighting up the board with potential tropical development as well. We actually noticed that we do see some members here of that potential Gulf system as well. We have a couple other systems that began to try to develop, and by the end of the forecast run here, we noticed that there are several storms, several distinct clusters of storms, which means that if this continues to move up in time, because this is now valid for September 1st, if this continues to move up in time, it seems like we are starting to get to that flip of the switch that we've been talking about. The upper level environment at this time is very favorable, except really in the central Caribbean, but other than that, the environment is pretty much all primed and ready to go. So we're just waiting on that dry air to kind of really lighten up. All right. So the switch is flipping and it is time to start preparing. Make sure you understand, your hurricane preparedness plans. If you live in an evacuation zone, understand that as well. And of course, with that, I am Mike Romali, and I'll talk to you guys again some more tomorrow.